hoax, fringe, pseudoscience. These are the words science uses to build a wall. They are the labels of dismissal, the intellectual weapons used to protect the official story. For centuries, we have been taught that science is a relentless pursuit of truth. But what if that is a lie? What if the official story is not a fortress of facts, but a fragile house of cards, terrified of a single gust of wind? What if the most dangerous ideas, the most forbidden theories, are not suppressed because they are wrong, but because they are right? What if they threaten to rewrite not just our textbooks, but the very nature of our reality, our history, and the structures of power that control our world? Today, we are not just exploring the fringe. We are putting the official story on trial. We are opening the zero-point file on 5 forbidden theories that science and the systems behind it want to keep buried. A quick advisory before we begin. The following episode explores theories that connect established science with unorthodox interpretations. These interpretations, proposed by respected researchers, exist at the very edge of our current understanding. They are presented here to encourage thought, debate, and exploration. The journey to the truth always begins with a question. We begin with the nature of reality itself. The official story is one of scientific materialism. The universe is a physical, bottom-up system. Matter formed atoms. Atoms formed molecules. Molecules formed us. We are an accident of chemistry, living in a universe of blind physical laws. This is the foundation of all modern thought. But this foundation cracked the moment we looked too closely. In quantum physics, the universe behaves differently when we are looking at it. Particles exist in a state of pure possibility until a conscious observer measures them. The very act of observation creates the reality. This is not a theory. This is a measured, proven, terrifying fact. It is the observer effect. It looks exactly like a computer simulation, rendering a video game only when the player is looking at that part of the map. This is the simulation hypothesis, the theory that our entire universe, our physics, our chemistry, our consciousness, is a highly advanced digital construct. So why is this theory forbidden? It's not just dismissed by science, it is hated. Why? Because it is unfalsifiable. It is the ultimate intellectual trump card, and more terrifyingly, it demotes our most sacred institutions. If the simulation hypothesis is true, then physics is not the study of reality, it is source code research. Biology is not the study of life, it is the study of a brilliant program. And most forbidden of all, if there is a simulation, there must be a simulator. It opens the door that science slammed shut centuries ago. It implies an architect. It merges the lab coat with the clerical robe. It turns science into a branch of theology. It is the one zero-point theory that, if true, makes every other scientific theory a footnote. From a reality that may be fake, we move to a history that is provably incomplete. We are a civilization obsessed with our own dawn. We hunt for Atlantis, 12,000 years old. But what if, as we explored in a previous investigation, we are not the first? This is the Silurian hypothesis. a terrifying thought experiment posed not by fringe voices, but by the director of the NASA Goddard Institute, Gavin Schmidt. The question is simple. How do we know for certain that an industrial civilization just like ours did not exist 56 million years ago? The official story laughs at this. It says, "Where are the artifacts? Where are the cities?" But this is the mistake. This is the intellectual failure. After 56 million years, there are no artifacts. Every building, every statue, every steel frame would be ground to dust and subducted into the Earth's mantle. To find a civilization that old, you must stop looking for a needle in the haystack. You must, as Schmidt and Frank proposed, look for the fingerprint, the chemical scar left on the haystack itself. And when they looked, they found one. It is called the PETM, the Paleocene-Eocene Thermal Maximum. 56 million years ago, the geological record shows the Earth snapped. An apocalyptic amount of carbon flooded the atmosphere. Temperatures skyrocketed. The oceans became acidic. A mass extinction event occurred. The official story blames volcanoes. But the data, the 0 point, shows a problem. The speed of the carbon release, the shape of the curve, does not look natural. It looks identical to our own Anthropocene. It looks industrial. So, why is this theory forbidden? Because it shatters the single most important myth we have, the myth of human uniqueness, the myth of linear progress. If they existed, and they rose to industrial power, and they triggered their own climate collapse, and they vanished so completely that we do not even know their name, then our climate crisis is not a modern problem. It is a cycle. It is the Great Filter. It means our end is not a risk. It is an inevitability. It is an existential truth so terrifying, the official story must label it a fantasy. From a lost civilization, we move to their lost super techs. We have all asked the question, how? How did they build the pyramids? How did they move the 100-ton blocks of the Serapeum? How did they fit the stones of Sacsayhuaman with a precision we cannot match? The official story is an insult to our intelligence. We are told brute force, ramps, ropes, pounding stones. They are asking us to believe that Stone Age cultures, using Stone Age tools, achieved results that our Steel Age cranes and lasers find impossible. The official story is a lie. The 0 point lore, the fragmented memory, the myth suggests a different answer. It speaks of sound. This is the theory of ancient acoustic levitation. The theory states that the ancients were not masters of brute force. They were masters of finesse. They were masters of physics. They understood that everything, including a 100-ton block of granite, has a unique resonant frequency. They knew that if you could generate the exact, precise harmonic frequency using focused sound from chants, from trumpets, from a lost device, you would not be lifting the stone. You would be neutralizing its gravity. You would be vibrating its molecular structure, creating a state of acoustic levitation, allowing a few men to guide a 100-ton block as if it were floating on water. This is not a myth. It is the only theory that explains the physical evidence, like the spiral drill cores of Egypt, which sank into solid granite at a rate 500 times faster than our modern diamond-tipped drills. They weren't drilling, they were dissolving. So, why is this theory forbidden? Because it reverses the timeline of history. It proves that the official story of linear progress is wrong. It means primitive man, in a loincloth, understood a branch of physics that our PhDs at MIT are only just beginning to grasp. It turns the primitive priest into a quantum physicist. And that is an idea that cannot be allowed. From a lost physical technology, we move to a lost metaphysical one. The official story of you is that you are a machine, a biological robot. Consciousness, your soul, yourself, is just an illusion, a ghost in the machine. It is, science insists, merely a chemical byproduct of the 3 pounds of meat inside your skull. When the brain dies, you end. This is the bleak, cold, and forbidden secret of scientific materialism. But what if this theory is not just wrong, but catastrophically, arrogantly wrong? This is the theory of consciousness as a fundamental force. The theory states that the official story has it backwards. The brain does not create consciousness. The brain receives it.
Consciousness is not the result of the universe. It is the source of it. It is a fundamental non-local force, just like gravity, just like electromagnetism. We are not ghosts in a machine. We are receivers, tuned to a cosmic broadcast. Why is this forbidden? Because it destroys the wall between science and magic. If consciousness is a non-local force, then impossible phenomena are no longer impossible. Telepathy, it is not magic. It is simply consciousness-to-consciousness data transfer. Remote viewing, the military programs that proved this was real. It is not a guess. It is a receiver, the brain, tuning into a different set of coordinates in the cosmic field. As we explored in our investigation of Shambhala, the lost lands might not be places at all. They might be states of being, realms accessible only by mastering this lost physics of consciousness. This theory is forbidden because it destroys the wall between science and magic. If consciousness is a non-local force, then impossible phenomena are no longer impossible. As we explored in our investigation of Shambhala, the lost lands might not be places at all. They might be states of being, realms accessible only by mastering this lost physics of consciousness. This theory is forbidden because it validates everything that the official story has labeled a hoax. It proves that the mystics, the monks, and the seers were not fools. They were the true scientists. From the sacred, we come to the profane, to the most dangerous and most terrestrial, forbidden theory of all. A theory that is forbidden not because it threatens our philosophy, but because it threatens our economy. This is the suppression of cold fusion. In 1989, 2 of the world's most respected electrochemists, Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Pons, held a press conference. They claimed they had achieved the holy grail of physics, nuclear fusion. Not in a billion-dollar reactor hotter than the sun, but in a simple glass jar on their lab bench. They had discovered a lost supertech, a source of clean, cheap, limitless, tabletop energy.
The world celebrated for 3 days. Then, the official story mobilized. The attacks were not scientific, they were personal. The experiments were flawed, the data was faked. Fleischmann and Pons were not pioneers, they were heretics. They were frauds. They were destroyed. Their careers were ruined. The discovery was labeled pseudoscience. Cold fusion became a joke, a career-ending word. Case closed. But why? Why the brutal, organized global suppression of a scientific claim? This is the 0 point. This theory is forbidden, not because it was wrong, but because it was too right. Let us ask the 0 point question. What happens to the world, our world, right now, if it is true? What happens to the multi-trillion-dollar oil and gas industry if anyone can generate limitless power in their garage? What happens to the geopolitical power of nations whose entire wealth is based on a resource we no longer need? What happens to the entire global economic power structure when energy becomes free? It collapses. Cold fusion was not an academic threat. It was an economic and political one. It was, perhaps, the first time in modern history that we saw in plain sight the official story mobilize to bury a truth that was simply too dangerous to be real. The simulation, the Silurian, the acoustic, the conscious, the suppressed. These theories are attacked, ridiculed, and buried, not because they lack evidence, but because they are overflowing with implications. They challenge the 3 pillars of our fragile reality. 1. They challenge our uniqueness, the Silurian hypothesis. 2. They challenge our reality, the simulation and consciousness.
This exhibit perfectly
3.
illustrates the
They
concept of
challenge
the pinnacle
our
of
power
creation,
structures,
demonstrating how far
acoustic
we've come as a
levitation,
species.
and cold fusion. The official story is comfortable. It tells us that we are the pinnacle of creation in a solid, predictable, material world. The 0 point lore, the forbidden lore, tells a different, more terrifying, and more magnificent story. That we are, perhaps, just programs in a simulation, living on the ruins of a Silurian civilization who failed to remember the conscious and acoustic physics of their ancestors, and are now slaves to an economic system that actively buries the free energy that could save us. Forbidden science is just science, waiting for a generation brave enough to ask the questions. The 0 point lore is asking, are we that generation? If you believe that history is hiding more than it reveals, subscribe to 0 point lore. We are dedicated to investigating the moments where our reality fractures. And we want to know what you think. Of these 5 forbidden theories, which one do you believe is the most dangerous to the official story? Let us know your theory in the comments below.